Okay, so we're watching the Stone Keep game from the Onslaught versus Nemesis set. It was the game 4, so the last game in the set. I just want to go over the drafts real quick, get out for you guys to see. So we got Janos, Victor, and our Khan and Willow against an Atlas, a McCullough, Terminus, Grover, and Leon. I have to say I favour the Onslaught draft here, mainly due to the fact that if this Vic and this Willow are allowed to free fire from different directions, which in all likeliness they can on this map specifically, with a damage boost, there's not really a lot that this lineup can do against it. Saying that, giving a team Atlas and McCullough can be very devastating for pick potential. The rewind, the snipe damage from the Atlas, the hook, and the ult from the McCullough do allow them to play aggressively, do allow them to go and force pressure. But normally they need something behind them working in tandem to help them apply that pressure. And considering they only have one DPS in the Leon, they very often will probably, unless they both push together, will very rarely find themselves with that support that they need of consistent damage coming out. So that's my opinion on the draft. How I think it should be played. Now, ideally, if you are Nemesis, what you want to do with your triple tank is you want to take over this area here in the quarry. Now, the reason you want to do that is because you can stick a tank one side, tank the other side, tank on point, and you can rotate your free tanks around depending on where the most damage is coming from. You can allow your Leon to put pressure on either point, on either side if they're flanking. The Leon can easily move, and everyone is in range of the Grover healing. A big factor on this map is it's very wide, which limits Grover healers, because Grover can only heal in a certain radius. Whilst that radius has been improved over time, it's still not capable of healing someone who wants to go off onto the other side of the map. Meaning you have to be aware and play around your healer, which a lot of people will not do. So, saying that, how I think the Onslaught draft should be played, I believe you set one of your DPS up on your high ground, you set one of your tanks here to disallow flanks or pushes through to take your ground, and then you play the other tank and the other DPS on this high ground to try and surround them, see where they are, see where their weak points are, and then you just keep poking until you force a rotation. You have damage boost, you can force them to back off early, to retreat, and you just wait until they show a sign of weakness, and then you give the call to say go, go, go. And once you go, 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 you go and kill everything, and you hope that your damage boost is enough to win you the fight. Alternatively, you can play a more defensive style and try and box out the Inara onto the point, and play more of the way of putting your Victor here so he can see into the quarry, or your Willow here so they can see into the quarry easier, and try and get on top and surround them. The reason this is slightly worse is because you're then coming closer to their tanks, and their tanks are better at closer ranges than they are at distance, so normally keeping your distance from a tank and poking at them until they have to retreat is the better option. However, we shall see what they decide to do. So, let's take a look at the items and what they're buying. Obviously, healers will both go Kronos. Richie's been designated as the main core rise, which makes sense. He is the main source of damage and is going to be the most likely target shooting at what they want to kill. Flame is going Wrecker, which is understandable. Alice is a very good Wrecker, which allows SJP to go Core. And then I would assume we shall probably go some sort of defensive item or healing item. and rejuvenate, allowing him to play on point longer. So I'm assuming they're gonna try and do what I said they're gonna do. Meanwhile, 3 courts. They don't seem to deal with the awkawrd and a Rezel. So first off, okay, so just quickly, what we saw happen there is we saw initially what I said was going to happen. Pretty much what I said was going to happen, which was the entire team from Nemesis come into the quarry and try and hold all angles. Meanwhile, we see OS play a way of taking and surrounding the point. However, we see a mixture from OS. We don't see the normal make sure there's someone here to block, which would be the Inara in this case. Because Inara can wall off one side, she can just say nope. And what happens is the Atlas comes all the way around from behind, comes upstairs. He sees that no one is watching him, and he doesn't even come up the stairs, I don't think. He actually probably comes from up here, and he just forces the Willow off the high ground fight. And says to his team, push, push, push. The Genos is on the low ground, rewinds the Genos, so the Genos is an easy target for the Leon and him to literally shoot at, and the Genos is a free pick straight away. And now the Willow's left up here in a 1v1 with this Atlas, but Nemesis have the man advantage, and Nora no longer has any form of healing. And Swarm is in a position where he is sort of like dumbfounded at what's going on over there. He doesn't know, he's unaware of wherever the tanks are because he can't actually see them on through his perspective. As you can see, everyone's blocked from line of sight, which just means all that's going to happen is eventually Nemesis are going to wear down their opponents at this point, because that Genos is not back for 10 seconds. So what I expect to see here is a full rotation onto point, leaving the Atlas to deal with the Willow, which ideally he wins, as he should be able to play around the cooldowns that he has doing that, and if not, he can just fall back towards his team, fall down to low ground, force the Willow off to low ground. So we'll see. I'm going to go up over here so that we can sort of see the whole fight and see what's going on. So I'm just going to slow it down so that everyone can see what's going on. So as you see, their retention starts to shift to the tanks. Swarm's weak, Swarm needs to retreat. Inara's weak, she probably popped DR at this point. The Willow has worked their way back up to Flame, who's still in control of that high ground. But the rewind does deny anything. They kill Swarm, they kill Inara. So they've no longer got any tanks. They do get a Terminus trade as a response, and they are still surrounded, so OS haven't completely lost this fight, and that McCall hook is pretty big. Right now they should try to regroup instead of carrying on this fight, because your healers are weak. Flame is still in the backline doing whatever he's doing because they're refusing to deal with him, and Inara just comes rushing through. So it's good patient play from the Inara to wait here for the touch. As you see, the Vic rotates because he knows Terminus is coming back, and he gets himself into a different position. And the Terminus is just looking around for him, like, where's the Vic? Alright, so that rewind from the Atlas, he should drop that, but he chooses not to carry on fighting, and does ultimately die for it. Which then gives OS the pick they need to say, let's attack. And then we see the Willow come from behind, using the ult to finish off the surround, to get behind them again, to force them to look in 3 different directions. They're now grouped up in this little cubby, in dead zones, no longer got a healer, and they're just slowly going to fall one by one. As you see, the Inara's not even looking at the Term, because the Term's not going to do enough damage to her to really worry about. Kill the team, and then we can take the point again. Once we've taken the point, we stagger out the last kill just a little bit, just to give ourselves a bit more pressure. And I mean, he can touch if he wants to, but it's not worth it. We see a very, very aggressive push there from Ralkion, forcing out all the cooldowns from the Atlas. Okay, so what we want to see here is we want to see the Inara on point is fine here. Taking this space here at the moment is fine, and keeping them distracted and looking in different directions, yeah? They can't leave this area here unattended, because Willow can just flower up and get behind them. They can't ignore here because Swarm can just push in behind them. So they've got to split their attention, and they've got to think the best possible way of doing it. So ideally what you see is they try to regroup onto this high ground over here as a collective and hold the different angles. What you then want to see is, once the payload is pushed from where it is now to about here, you want to then see Swarm start to rotate, either by going under here, which is the quickest path to it, and going in behind them, or you can take the long way round and make them, then it's a bit more obvious that you're not just waiting there, and you go right behind. And what you should do is you should find that this area here is unattended and you can get behind fairly quickly, because what I'm assuming will happen is the Term will push up into this room, or probably go to point later on in the fight, as he doesn't have much range, so he needs to contest more often than not, otherwise he feels kind of useless. And then we'll see the other four people sit in and around this house area to try and help kill whatever's on point. So I'm just gonna go up again, and we're gonna play and see how it goes out. So again, we see Ralkion just remind them that he can easily take this high ground, and they go to force him off. Ralkion quickly dips, knowing that if he gets caught out, he's dead. Okay, so we've pretty much seen what I think should happen, but right now, instead of Swarm sitting here shooting pointlessly, and the Vic sitting over there, alright, hang on, this is a mess. Okay, this is a mess. So what we should see happen. That's a really annoying noise, and I'm sorry for that. But we're gonna have to deal with it for the time being. What we should see happen is Ghost shouldn't be over here alone in the open. He should come over here towards the Genos and use these line of sights to be putting pressure on whatever contested point. That shield obviously is the reason he's probably over here, but as you can see, it's not really helping him being in the open either. I still think he would be better suited next to his Genos in case someone decided to go for a quick push. As you can see, the Genos is kind of away from his team, to the point where for example, if the Atlas did decide to just dive, it's going to make everyone have to turn and face, because he needs the help. What else we don't see is we still see both tanks on point. Okay, there should have been a call made from either of the tanks to say that one of us is going to change position. I'm sorry, because I just went closer to it. But What I think should happen is the Khan should be coming under here, and the Willow should be following him. Because as you can see, this is open. There's no one looking. There's a support looking here, and there's a Makoa at half health. This here is free space that they can come and take and utilize to quickly get in and then split the attention, make them look in two different directions again instead of one. And allow them to just really free push into either go up the stairs and free push into this back line where they're not expecting it, or to just free push onto these tanks that are just not looking in this direction at all and that are weak. So we'll carry on and we'll see what happens. So we see the call made to go and kill the Term. That Grover ult was just a second too late. If he'd not hesitated to press that and just drop down immediately, then that would have been a different story. And also, if Woosh had backed off towards his team instead of backing off towards away from his team, he would have been easier healed and we wouldn't have lost, and that fight wouldn't have gone down that way. We do see Ghost in a really compromised position here, as Atlas is just going to fall and kill him. The Makoa ult does come out to stabilize. We see Swarm still pushing point and Rauk still behind. Okay, so what I don't like here is they let that Genos get away one shot. Someone should chase him into that quarry. Force him back further. Because now all that's going to happen is he's still alive, he can still pocket this Willow. And this Willow gets just enough damage off and gets out of here alive. Mainly because of the healing from that Genos. And then what we see is OS are allowed to regroup, and rightly so, as they refuse to push the one-shot Genos. They only needed to send one tank after him. It was a free kill, but they just let it go. They're allowed to regroup quicker. They've got 5. What we see here is the Inara goes underneath. They're aware of this fact, mainly due to that Atlas being there at the right time. But that Atlas being there means that there's no stasis field up top, which means Makoa gets picked by the Carnal, which then allows them once again to initiate a push. But they all funnel through this one direction. They're all funneling through. They're making it easy for the enemy team to get one line of sight. The enemy only has to look one way. That Victor ult is terrible, as he just immediately gets crushed, stunned out of it. Like, you don't pick ult when a Terminus is right in front of you. The Term does die, but Ralphion's weak. Okay, Ralphion does live there, thankfully. But the Vic does go down eventually. Rauk then comes up to take high ground. They do trade 2 for 1, but then it goes 2 for 2 because Swarm wasn't holding his shield up when he was low, and doesn't have increased healing when his shield's up, which would have allowed him to come into that fight and retake it. This Inara wall is detrimental to a team because it cuts off their line of sight on what they're trying to shoot at. Rauk's just trying to go in and make plays. And he goes in and he waits in this little cubby here. And instead of going that way, I think it would have been better for him to just fall back. Look, as then Makoa comes in and just says, hey, you're dead. Which again is another stagger kill. And then they come and get the Inara, who eventually has to come back as well. And they all just fall back too late. Once they saw that they lost 2 members, they should have already been trying to retreat, regroup. Especially if they want to go for another retouch. Because they do still have 1 retouch in them. There is enough time for it, but with being this staggered, it's probably no longer worth it. I'd say you want to just charge the Genos ult, charge the Willow ult, which they've just got, and say, okay, we'll get as much Khan as we can, and go into the next fight with 4 ults. As you see, they're finally starting to realize that they need to push from a different direction, but they overcommit to it way too much. But it does allow the Inara to come through and get the touch just in time. But Swarm overcommits just a little bit too much and is forced in, leaving his DPS exposed. Ralkion pops ult there, which is questionable when you've got people that are weak and you know that you've not got a pick yet. So they're fighting at a detriment. Eventually, Genos is just forced out because there's no one there to stand next to him to help him, because Anora's got to stay on point. And they've just wasted an ult for free, pretty much. They wasted an ult for about 14% charge on a Khan ult. Which, in the long run, really isn't worth it. So I think ult, which can be used to just push for free. So, they've got a lot of potential here. We see a very normal response here from OS. We see...
You are not welcome here.
Okay, so we see a very normal way of playing Splitstone, which is have a DPS on the high ground, send a tank to point, send a DPS and a tank to watch this a little bit, and keep the Genos or your healer around the house so that they're relatively safe. But the problem with that is they've got 3 tanks, and they decide to send this Makor into the B line, and unfortunately, just as Ralkion turned away to go capitalize on the Inara ult, he slipped in behind. Now, problem here is, this Inara ult I feel is a little bit rushed, because Ghost is in a position where he can't really shoot anyone. He can shoot at the Atlas head, which is stunned through his stasis field, but he can't get to either of the DPS. He can't shoot the Terminus either. Swarm is up here, still shielding, assuming Ghost is behind him, but Ghost is no longer behind him. So, that's miscommunication. The Inara ult is good. She sees that they're all clumped up, and she hits the ult. But, if I'm correct in thinking, what we're gonna see happen is Grover is probably gonna respond immediately with this ult of his, in order to keep all of the damage that does potentially come through, if any, off of their team, and allow them to keep pushing heavy. You've committed 2 ults. You used a Genos ult and got no value. You used an Aura ult and looking like you're gonna get very little to no value. You've used 2 ults already in this fight, and pretty much got nothing for it. You got about 15% objective time, which isn't worth 2 ultimates. And they still have, Nemesis still have all 5 of their ults to easily just come back and put the pressure back on. Now, ideally, what you'd like to see is the Vic is still up here, because if Vic is still up here, whilst yes, he can't shoot at either of the DPS during that Inara ult, he can, with the help of this Willow, burn this Terminus, who is yet to buy resilience, so will take the full brunt of this ult. The only ones that will get up quick from this ult are the Lian and the Atlas. The rest of them can't get up any quicker, which means the Grover ult can't come up in time to save the Terminus, which is pushed up further. So that's what you would like to see happen there, but Ghost no longer has a line of sight. I don't think Willow's splash damage is going to be able to do enough damage to burn the Term in time. But we'll see. So I'm going to carry on. We do see Grover ult immediately press to respond. And then we see Swarm come in and chase the Liam, which is a big bad decision. That's a whirlwind that's just been used. That Leon's going to be at full health in like seconds. There's no point of ever pushing them. As you see, the Makoa comes in behind. He does get the pick on Ghost, but he's way too late on his ult. We're just going to slow this back down because there's a lot going on. So, what we do see is Makoa's traded, so we go 2 for 1. As Anara also dies. We're seeing regrouping. Nice patient play, waiting on their own high ground. They do have 60% on the point. Still wasn't worth using all 3 ults for. But Vic does almost have his back. Khan does almost have his back. But again, like, there's both their tanks are on this right hand side, leaving the left hand side wide open. And this general's positioning is terrible. You have no reason to be on the bridge there. You have no reason to be that far back. Your whole team is over this side of the map. Vic dies as well for some reason. I'm assuming he just got shot at too much, didn't realise and didn't fall back. And now their Inara's ran to point way too early. Way too early. Like, she had no need to go to point as early as she did. Regroup, get kills. Don't leave sides wide open. Don't leave your support wide open for a free pick like that. You're just gonna lose. Now, I'm assuming they just go ahead and cap the point here because there's not enough time left. So yeah, they cap the point, and as you see, this space that they've been given, they take. Makoa goes in maybe a little bit too aggressive there, and that Inara wall is just unfortunate. Didn't quite come up in time, and Swarm died. So they trade 1 for 1. Willow ult does come out, but Leon's up on that high ground, so she can't get as much value as she'd like. Although Leon does seem to be losing that fight because, hey, hitting shots isn't a thing these days. So we're just going to pause here. So what we saw happen there, the Willow ult comes out. They're all on this high ground. The Willow ult comes out to distract their attention, yeah? They have to look away. The ult's okay. Richie really should have done better in timing his shots with when the Willow peaks to shoot her shots, but that's minor nitpicking. You can't really fault them too much. It's kind of a hard angle to shoot over. But then what you see is the rest of them realize, okay, we need to push into a place where Willow can't push us. So we see both their tanks push into here. And then we see Onslaught's rotation all be to push into that room too. They all push in, but Grover ult comes out to keep the tanks of Onslaught, of Nemesis alive. Meanwhile, the tanks for Onslaught are not healthy. Well, I mean, Swarm's healthy, but he's got his shield up because he has to block for his team. And the Inara is not healthy and is down here 1v1ing a Makoa. I'm assuming the call is made that Makoa is in the house underneath, which is why we see Ghost dropping here to try and come and help the Inara. Because Makoa is low, and if he can get there in time, they can potentially kill Makoa, but Makoa does also have ult. So if he feels threatened from the Vic, what you could see happen is Makoa can just say, nope, there's a minute 52 left, I can charge this ult again before the end of the round. Let me just get this pick on the Inara, and let me just take this space that they're giving us for free. Because at the moment, the whole fight is happening in this one area. There's no taking of space. There's so much free space, so much unattended space that no one's looking at, because everyone just wants to filter into one lane the entire time and not really do much. But we'll carry on and we'll see where it goes from here. So we see Genosol come out and once again get negative value. Inara just decides to wall herself off and not do anything, and Vic comes running back up to the high ground. So Leon now gets this free space. Leon just decides to push into this free space that no one's looking at, shoot at, and Makoa just decides to pop ult to say, yep, we can just go here. They clean up. They've got Swarm trapped in that top room. Ghost does come in, gets stunned. He's gonna die as well. They do manage to trade out Tom, which is okay, but I don't think he should drop there, but he does drop. He does back himself into a direction. No, everyone runs on top of him, and everyone runs from the same, so giving him a little bit more time to stall out payload. Leon should have just dropped behind him straight away to get the kill quicker, but she decides to drop on his head. But as you see, SJP is not bothered. He's just going to push in. And Makoa just takes all that free space that they've been given. So that whole thing that I've been saying the whole game, take the free space, take the space, make them look in different directions. We see a Vic ult come out. I'm not sure really why. He's not going to get much value from that. There's not really anyone low or in line of sight. The Inara wall comes up to block that one angle. And this Khan ult here onto the term is big. It's that Nara wall and that Carnal is just enough for them to get that ult off for free and pull in the Terminus so that he can't reanimate during that fight, which means that they have to back off here because Term is going to be too long, everyone's too healthy on the side of Onslaught. Nemesis have to back up here, which is what they do. That rewind is really bad. It puts him straight back into the back line, and the Vic's still there, just waiting to clean him up. He should have either just died and regrouped with his team quicker, or got out. I'm not sure if he could have got out. He may have been able to, and if he couldn't, he should have just died instead of wasting an extra couple of seconds, which is team enough staggered for. I think SJP goes for the hook there, maybe a bit preemptively, hoping to maybe equalize the fight so they can continue fighting a bit quicker, but I still think it's the wrong decision to make. I think you just wait, because you can poke for free, you don't need to put yourself in danger. As you see now, they're taking this bridge. They're saying, this is ours, we're going to push in, and we're going to take it behind the Term power siphon, where you can't do damage to us, but we can do damage to you. And what we see there from Richie is poor. He just stays in radius of the Willow instead of cutting line of sight. So, what we see, I know we're seeing a lot go on right now, and I'll explain in a second, but Richie is on this bridge here. He knows that if he stands anywhere here, the Willow is doing damage to him. Willow damage stacks, which means after about 3 shots, Willow is doing 800 damage a shot, which means Willow's blast radius damage is much bigger too. And Richie overestimates how much damage he can take and stays up here. Probably expecting a Grover Hill, and I think they probably were talking about it. But to be safe, he should have just fallen down off the bridge, rotated up and behind, and then come up and pushed into here, because Swarm was so busy trying to kill SJP that if he'd done that, that would have been a free kill onto this Khan right now. This cobble wouldn't have been as low. But instead what we see is 3 tanks in 3 different places. Only 2 in range of the Grover Hill. Yeah, only 2 of them are in range of the Grover Hill. One of them's got a contest point, and they've no longer got a damage to keep going. They got 22 seconds. Richie's not back for 2 seconds. That means they've only got 20 seconds to push this in. Which also means that Richie has to get from one side of the map to the other, which is about 7, 8, 9 seconds before he's back in a position where he's able to shoot. Let alone be in a position which is good and advantageous to be able to actually get any help on his team, and they're about to lose their Makoa. Unless Grover decides to pop ult here. But even if Grover pops ult here, it could be too late if this Makoa shield goes down and this Victor and Khan are both shooting at him. So, we will see. Yeah, as you see there, Grover decides not to pop ult, probably the great decision. Thomas is just void gripped into the B line because he dove in. They lose Flame, they trade Ralkion for Flame, but Whoosh is one shot on point. They're not gonna ult that because there's no way his team can get back in time to support him before he gets burnt. And then we just see the Khan push out saying, alright, anyone that's close is gonna get dismounted. Meaning there's not enough time to be able to get back into this. Yeah, and there we go. Normal. Okay, So we do see Nara go to point, and we see maybe a more aggressive rotation this time, but we don't see what made this rotation here weak last time, which was the Atlas pushing into the B line. We then see the barrage get put on to 3 stun, and we see Terminus reviving himself in the dead zone. So he loses half of his health. He does clip the Inara, yeah, but it was a good rewind. Like, it was good positioning to get the Inara into, like, the good rewind to get it into here. This ult here is questionable from Flame. That shield is good. It allows Jeff to get up, or Miracle to get up. That's a good ult from Leon to kill make sure the Willow can't come and kill the Grover, which is going to have to retreat. But instead of making sure that he can't be seen by this Khan by staying here, he decides to keep backing off, and Khan just keeps pushing in, which means that the tanks have no hope. Now, what we see is both the Onslaught tanks leave their support wide open, and SJP realizes he's not going to get any value by going in there and dying to their tanks as well. Let me go over there and push the support who's alone, which equalizes the fight to 2 tanks versus 2 tanks. This wall here gives Swarm the ability to get an ult off onto the co-op, although the distance he was at for this ult here and the health he was at, he wouldn't have been able to throw the Koa into the fidget spinners in time. Koa could just spam his movement ability and get back. We do see him punished for that, but we do also see the Koa punished for staying in the open for too long. What we should see here, and now this is a big problem, what we see here is this Inara happily sitting on point whilst it's being contested, getting no cap, instead of going in and chasing this one-shot Makoa. This one-shot Makoa. This Makoa is literally 1 shot away from death from this Inara. And this Inara's not even looking at him. Not even... It's not even a difficult shot. Yeah? Now, if this Makoa doesn't die here, and is able to get out alive, I'm sorry, I was just checking to make sure that Inara had caught 2, and she does, so she can kill this Makoa even if he gets healed. But he turns his attention to the full health support. Now that support is going to take longer to kill, it's going to have the chance to heal, which is going to give SJP a better chance of living the fight. All that should happen here is this Inara should just say, okay, we've got 66% on point. They're contesting. They've got 3%. If I leave this point for a couple of seconds to go chase this Makoa, make sure he dies, that for us is a free kill. He's got DR up, so he can't really get hooked. The Makoa is sitting by the fidget spinners, looking, but knows that that DR is up. So all Inara has to do is play the range, shoot at the Makoa, chase him if she needs to, but make sure DR is up. But if this Makoa gets away, then Nemesis have a really good chance of living, because they'll have all 5 members up. Onslaught are still waiting for their second tank to come off of respawn. They need something, and that Makoa pick is what's going to give them the chance to really win this. Because all that's going to happen, realistically, is their 2 damage dealers are going to keep shooting into this power siphon that's up. They're not going to be able to get line of sight on the Makoa. The Makoa's going to come back and pincer push, taking more space, putting more pressure on. But we will see. And yeah, Inara just gives up on the kill. That Makoa should never have been allowed to live there. And rightfully so, the Inara decides, I need to get off of point. The Willow even comes around to help the Inara with the kill, but Makoa's back at full health now. Look at, like, Term just dives in because he knows that he's got no thing. Vic was poked out by the Atlas. Ralkion's now 1. Inara's now being rewound. All attention should be on this Inara. Inara's going to point. Nope, Inara's not going to point. Inara doesn't know what she's doing right now. Swarm's back at 1. This Vic ult here could be big if it connects anything, but it doesn't connect. It does get... So they trade 1 for 1 in that fight. But they've still got no tank pressure. They still have to regroup. They have to play this really patiently now and wait. Ghost is getting a little bit aggressive there. It should be more careful because this Makoa could look for the hook if he was more in tuned. He does look for the hook and sadly hits the boxes. If that hits Ghost, that's GG. But as we see them taking point. This Atlas is only just coming back to the fight. Willow decides to go for the round 1 play of just getting behind them and surrounding them with the ult, which is good. Puts the pressure on. Alright, Leon should kill this Willow here. You just yep, stand next to your support, just press triangle button, no? Okay, alright, so the triangle button there from Leon should have come out because Willow's now going to kill that Grover. Which means that the Nemesis have no chance of now winning this point. They have a one-shot Makoa. They have no cooldowns on their Atlas. They have a half health term, and they are getting flanked by a Willow from behind. Yeah, this Willow's able to keep constantly applying pressure, and there's no communication from the tanks on Nemesis right there. Like, Flame was the one that needed to get the big touch. He does get it, but it comes at the price of both of his other tanks dying. Because Whoosh sees that he's not going to get there in time, has to go for the touch. Flame then goes for the touch after Whoosh dies. It's like, it's all too late. And it was all started because one Leon ult wasn't used. You've got to get that kill on that Willow. That Willow cannot be allowed to do what she just did. And what you see here is a very, very aggressive zone from Onslaught. But instead of the Genos being this far up, it should be the Inara. The Inara should be up and over here. The Inara should be here, making them look at her. Instead it's a Genos making them look at him, and they're just like, okay, we're just going to surround the people that are up top, because that Genos can't really go too far in, otherwise he dies. Ghost is going to be pushed by this Atlas and die. Swarm's going to get trapped in this room and die. Yeah, like, I don't know why the Inara decided to stay on point instead of the Genos. The advantage of Genos is that he can heal through walls and from range. As you see, Ralkion's still taking pop shots. I mean, yeah, the Inara is still pushing payload, but she's about to be staggered from her team. Really bad as well, because they're all about to be fully regrouped, and this Inara is about to die. Yeah, I'm questioning the game sense of the tank player right now. Should have definitely been further up to begin with. The Genos should have been on point, and definitely should have fell back a lot sooner. Instead, he dies, makes them staggered out for another 7 seconds. Like, Inara's just coming back now. We're gonna just go back to normal speed whilst Inara's coming back. But here we go, like, Inara's coming back. She's pushing in.
You're mine, little man.
Okay, so the good thing is, they open up with the Carnal, and they're still not occupying the space, still not taking it. And the Inara finally realizes, I can get in behind. Ghost quickly comes in. Willow comes in to follow up as well, to chase down the 2 tanks that have now turned their back on everyone else. And they're forced to just go to point and try and stall out for as long as they can until they die. It was good value from the Inara. That there is what I've been saying the whole game. If you can get behind just once and surprise them, it's game over on that choke. Now the way they deal with that is they always have one of their DPS on the, well, I say one of their DPS, they always have their DPS here on the back bridge so they can see through the door so they can't get surprised, but it's too late. Okay, so here what we see is a normal, trying to take this hand side over here, yeah? This right hand side of the spawn from the Nemesis side. Nemesis say, nope, this is our high ground. And they don't overcommit, which is really important. Although SJP does overcommit, he gambles on the hook for the ult. It's half health in his ult because of that. Now they're getting separated by a Willow. If that Willow was a bit more risky, that could have been a deadly arm. But instead, the Willow backs off into the turn, into the cover that's pushing. And it's just unfortunate. Ghost then dies to a Leon ult to the face. Swarm is just forced to try and go in, like, get whatever he can to trade from that. And then the Genesis is the only thing left alive. So we're going to go back to normal speed and let it play out. Genos Space Jam 1 allows him to get across that bridge half a second quicker. It's not really necessary, boys and girls. But what we see is OS regrouping, taking multiple angles for a change when they're regrouping, instead of everyone rushing down and funneling in straight away. And Nara goes straight to point. Keeps the Terminus busy. The whole of heating up is up on this little bit, trying to deal with. So, what we saw there, let's go into this real quick. We see a Willow and a Genos down main with the Inara shooting at the turn, putting pressure on the turn. And we saw Grover, Leon, Makoa and Atlas come in here in this one little bit, trying to deal with a Khan and a Vic. Now, what we're seeing is the end resemblance of that fight. We now have a Willow who's about to get behind and split the attention of everyone even more, because she's going to be able to get up in the air, she's going to be able to shoot down on everyone. This position here from Ralphion is pretty good as well. If he stays playing around this little pillar here, instead of pushing too deep, he can sort of line of sight the Leon, as well as shoot at the Grover, get round here, shoot at the Leon, get here, cut off anyone that gets pushed out of here, if anyone does get pushed out of there. It's decent positioning. The rotation from having all players from the side of Nemesis here going in onto the point and making sure that this Inara can't just sit here and battle this turn all day with the help of a Genos and a Willow is good, but it comes a little bit late. They didn't need to have 4 people in this one bit here. Having 4 people in this one bit here really limits your line of sight on anything. No one can really shoot or do anything. If I was Onslaught and I wasn't playing against triple tank on this map, I would try to send one of my DPS up and underneath here later on once the payload gets a bit closer, but that's just because it gives you another angle to attack. It's hard for them to defend from. But currently I like the fact that the team's split. I like the fact that the Willow's in the air, putting pressure on, ready to cut off anyone that comes out of that room, ready to put down pressure onto the healer, which is going to force the Leon to have to stop shooting the Inara. And the Genos is probably going to be able to sit there until he's full health, so carry on playing. Yeah, Leon is forced to look at the Willow. Willow does play around a little bit there, cutting line of sight. Grover cuts himself off from everyone else. Flame dies, which puts them at a disadvantage. And again, you see the dead zone come out. You see Ralphion ready to cut off anyone that comes out of that room. They get the Makoa pick. They get the Grover with the last second ult, which is big. Now what they need to do is kill that Term. I mean, Term could have just Calamity blasted that Genos to death, but decided to go for the axe swings instead. This Leon here needs to die. Ghost needs to quickly take that right hand side. He maybe committed a little bit too hard. They trade 1 for 1. It's fine. Willow's allowed to come up to here and have hold of this high ground. There's no Leon to really put pressure on her. Dead zone on the point. That's a good rewind from the Atlas, but that's a good Gen Assault in response to it. That Atlas needs to die now. They do. The Willow gets the pick. Raukyon needs to try and get back up onto this high like he does to make sure he can keep raining down. Both their tanks shouldn't be on point right now. What should be happening is this Khan should be coming up here, putting pressure on the Grover. Yeah, having both there because all he's done is put his back to spawn. Okay, let me just pause this real quick. Okay, so we saw two major sins here. We saw both tanks on point at the same time when they didn't need to be. Inara is okay on point alone against two tanks for a little while, as long as you are pressuring out everything else. Yeah? Now sadly, what they did was they allowed their shield tank to get low. Now, he was shooting at, I believe it was the Makoa. Yes, it was the Makoa. It was the Makoa in shield. He was trying to shoot at that Makoa and kill it. Now this sadly meant that he had his back and wasn't watching spawn timers. Had his back to the spawn of Nemesis, and Nemesis, Liana is going to burst you down if you have your back to her. She has a lot of burst damage. She's going to take you down in a couple of seconds, and Swarm has his back to it. Now, the way to limit that is Swarm could have been over here, having his back here, so he had the wall against his back, which means Leon has to come out a little bit further, but Leon can still come over the edge and get the kill, yeah? What really should be happening is Swarm should be over here. Now, the reason I say Swarm should be over here is because DPS can't get the line of sight. He can push up behind, get the pressure onto them, force them back into the spawn to heal, come back down, help the Inara on point. They kill the Terminus like they do there, because Makoa runs away because he's low and needs to get away. Term ults, Inara comes and waits behind here instead of trying to wait behind the payload, because the payload's hitbox, as you can see, is much lower. You can see the head of the payload. You can see what, if I can move through it, it doesn't have hit registration, yeah? So because of that, I can move through it, as I can't move through this, which means Termal, I mean I can move through the top of it, but I can't move through the bottom of it, which means Termal can't go through it, yeah? Whereas I can just move through payload. So which means Termal can go through it, basically how it works. So Inara should have come over here, waited behind here, been out of line of sight of the Termal. The Khan could have contested with his shield up, back against the wall, and then moved off of point again to put the pressure on, whilst they killed the Term, who's in a dead, probably going to be in a dead zone in a couple of seconds, because Raukyon's probably going to have that ability back up. And then they keep it going, but instead they lose both their tanks to the case of one ult. They have one ult available themselves, I think. And all we see is a defense successful. Yeah? Now, I'm pretty sure we're going to see something very, very similar to what we've seen in previous rounds, which is Inara straight to point. And we see the aggressive push again from Onslaught, but this time the Willow sits back. And once again, we see the triple tank sit inside. They cut off the Term. Willow just goes in, gets in behind them. She goes in, sees the Leon's out of position, goes in, goes and gets the kill on the Term that's separated from his team and his Drover. We're just going to slow things down real quick because there's a lot going on. You see, Ghost is still up here behind them. Ghost is still cutting them off. They might lose Khan, but that... They trade 2 for 2. I mean, the Willow didn't really need to go in. I can see what they're doing. This Genos up here right now should not be living. This Leon should have taken her attention away from the Vic for half a second to come and get this Genos dead. Yeah? Genos needed to die there. But he doesn't. He gets away for free. He looks behind him. He sees that no one's behind him. Ghost overstays his welcome, gets flanked by a Term. And what should really happen here is he does get out alive thanks to resilience, I'm pretty sure. Yep, thanks for Rezo too. What we should see here is they regroup. Dead zone on point. The Khan's playing too close to point. He doesn't need to be this close to point. Yeah? He's not helping in any way. He's not applying pressure. All he's done is take away a couple of seconds from the other team. And we just see, once again, miscommunication from... Let me just pause this real quick and go over what we've just seen. Okay. So what we've just seen there is a lot of miscommunication, yeah? Flame wasn't over here helping destroy the shield, yeah? Flame is their Rekka. Yeah, Makoa also has Rekka 2 now. Leon has Rekka 2. This shield on the Khan should have been burnt so much quicker. They should have said, Khan's one shot, he's behind shield. Everyone with Rekka should have turned to destroy that shield so that the Khan dies quicker. This Khan should not have been as far in and touching point as he needed to. The Inara was on point the whole time, and at any period of time that Inara could have just stepped off and regrouped. They only had 12%. You could have all fallen back, you could have all regrouped, used Inara ult on whoever pushed to get a free kill real quick. But instead, what we have is a really, really sloppy end fight, yeah? From both teams. Both teams really sloppy. Look how grouped up OS are. They could have, right now, the Willow could be over here, which would give her better advantage on the point. Instead of holding an angle here, where she can barely see the Grover, she can see the Leon, but she gives Leon direct line of sight on her. Leon has ult. If Leon gets two good shots in, or a presence in, and then hits ult, Ralkion's dead. Yeah? So realistically, the Willow should be looking to come over here. Inara should be trying to get off of point, but I think it's a little bit too late. I think she's used all of her cooldowns. She might have Ervangard up. This is a big sin as Inara, yeah? You've got a wall up here for literally no reason. I want to say she tried to put it closer to herself and just didn't get it up in time, but I don't know, because that wall is just... Maybe she was trying to cut the Grover off. But even so, you've used your cripple, your slow / cripple / water's field. You've used your wall. You don't have Ervangard up. If she has Ervangard, she should live this. If she doesn't have Ervangard, then she's wasted all 3 cooldowns and is probably going to die to this Makoa, as there's only a Genos shooting at the moment. So, once again, we're seeing sloppy team fights. This Leon should dive, mainly due to the fact that Ghost is here as well and is able to get a decent line of sight. But who knows at this point. I could also potentially see the Leon going for the pick onto the Vic instead with the ult, instead of the Willow, because the Willow's a riskier target. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But, like I say, the Khan inquiry for OS should never have been here. Should never have been playing this far up. Should never have been doing here. Because he's too close to point. He can play around a little bit further around the outside. He can play a bit more aggressive. But being on point like he was, touching sort of this area where he didn't need to be, it just meant that they were too grouped up together. It just meant that he was too weak. And he was the first to die because of it. Fortunately, his team did... well, I mean, he was the second to die. The Term died first. But his team did respond and kill the Atlas. So, okay, we see it. Yep, we see Leano come out. She does go for the Vic. So she decided the Vic was a better problem. Not sure why Inara ult was used, to be honest, on point. That's a Leviathan Makoa. Yeah. Ralkion does touch. Now... yeah, I'm not sure. He shouldn't have got out there alive. Should hit a couple more shots, maybe. He does. He's forced out the fight. He comes in. Swarm just comes straight in, bundling in. Keeps the pressure on, which I think he's also very lucky that Term's so like pre-distracted by this point, he doesn't stun. That's unlucky for that ult. And then I don't know why the Atlas decided to ult there, but he does. There's no communication from the tanks at the end to say, look, I'm gonna die, I need someone to take over point. And we get the result we do, which is OS winning